You're listening to the Compassion Fatigue Podcast with your host, Jennifer Blau, Session 23. Well, hello there. My guest today is Lisa Levinson. Lisa is the director of In Defense of Animals' Sustainable Activism campaign. She's also a trained movement therapist, museum exhibit designer, and mosaic artist. Wow. Lisa promotes self-care for animal activists through the IDA's Animal Activist Support Services, which includes a helpline, support groups, as well as online events. Lisa also organizes local vegan spirituality groups and regional retreats to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. She co-founded Public Eye, Artists for Animals, to teach compassion for animals through the arts, and founded the Toad Detour to help migrating toads safely cross the roads in Philadelphia. Here today to talk about sustainable activism, please welcome Lisa Levinson. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the Compassion Fatigue Podcast. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us today. So, Lisa, for those of us who may not be familiar with IDA, can you tell us more about the organization?
Sure. In Defense of Animals has been around for over 30 years, and it was started by Dr. Elliot Katz, who founded it as an animal rights organization to protect the rights, welfare, and habitat of animals. And since then, we have a new director, and her name is Dr. Marilyn Kroplik, and she has an expanded vision of the organization as helping people, helping animals, and the environment. And our campaigns, we have a few specific campaigns, and you can find those at www.idausa.org. But our historic campaigns have been with that dog meat campaign to try to end the dog meat trade. We have other ones that are creating, it's called Justice for Animals in the Deep South. We have a farmed animals campaign. We have a sustainable activism campaign, which you'll hear more about, a campaign to help wild horses and also to help cats. We have a whole series of campaigns that we've been working on for many years.
Yeah, so I would love to hear more about the sustainable activism campaign, because the other campaigns are really geared towards the protection of animals, but this one is a little bit different, right? So this one is about protecting the activists themselves, right? So tell us more about this, and how did this particular campaign come about?
Sure, yeah. Well, the Sustainable Activism campaign was actually the brainchild of Dr. Marilyn Kroplik, who is our current president of In Defense of Animals, and she's also a trained and practicing psychiatrist. And when she became involved in the animal rights movement, she noticed that a lot of people who were very active in the front lines were experiencing compassion fatigue, burnout, and other kinds of psychological drains on our mental well-being. And she thought it would be really helpful to provide some resources for these animal activists, not only in mental health, but also in ways to communicate with one another better, and ways to honor what we call sacred activism, the work that we're doing in the world. So she put together this broad program to support activists emotionally, spiritually, and also physically. And then I stepped in to help launch that program, the campaign, and then also to put it into action and to run it. And so that's the idea, is to help people who help animals, to provide resources so that those folks can continue helping animals in the long run, rather than burning out or suffering from compassion fatigue and then redirecting their efforts towards something else.
And you really do provide just a ton of resources for activists. Can you tell our listeners what some of those look like?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we're very excited about these resources. One of them is a dedicated support line for animal activists. So activists can call us pretty much anytime during the week, Monday to Friday, and they'll receive a live person on the other end of the phone who is also a trained practitioner, could be a therapist or coach, someone who's trained in psychology and also trained in nonviolent communication techniques, to respond, to listen, to offer some guidance, guidance, give support, and even resources. We have a huge activist resource list directly on our website with all kinds of books, podcasts, and resources for mental, spiritual, and also physical health available. So the folks who answer the phone, we not only speak with the activists who call and try to assist them with whatever concern they have, we also refer them to different resources on the resource list and provide referrals to vegan therapists.
And this is a free service, right? I mean, these people are volunteers, is that correct?
Yes, this is a free service. It's free counseling for anyone, and it could be related to animal activist issues, such as I was at a protest the other day and got into a conflict with somebody on the street, and I'm feeling really down about it and kind of hopeless and want to talk about it. Or it could be, I'm having my own personal issues. I'm struggling because I'm caretaking my mother who's getting older, and I'm also trying to do activism and having trouble balancing those things. So we really cover the gamut. The people who call us can call for their own personal reasons that don't relate to animals, because we feel that by helping people in their personal lives, we'll also be helping them with their activism and ultimately helping the animals as well.
Oh, sure. And I would imagine this is completely confidential, right?
Oh, definitely. The line is confidential, and we do provide, like I mentioned, resources such as therapist referrals, and everything that we do is confidential. So
Excellent. Gosh, what an absolutely needed resource. And I just so appreciate that you guys are really being proactive about that, looking out for the people as well as the animals.
yeah, and we really encourage people to call, because sometimes I've heard that activists feel as though, they don't want to take up our time with their concerns. And actually, we have all the time in the world. That's what we're there for, is to assist activists. And so we encourage people to use this resource. Pick up the phone. You'll have a wonderful conversation with somebody who really cares about you, about the animals, and can also help to resolve any issues that you're having. So we encourage people to use the resources. And we also have a few others. We offer a support group that's online, and it's every month, and people join in and we talk about whatever people bring to the meeting. Sometimes we'll have a theme that we'll discuss, and that's also most of our services are free, so that's a free thing for people. And that's more like a group experience where people have an opportunity to receive support from one another as well as a facilitator.
When is that held?
That is held on the fourth Thursday of every month. And generally it's in a webinar format, and that's from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time. So you can find the information on our events page as to how to register for these events. And that's idausa.org/events. And you can also access from there different replay links for previous events that we've had. So we have this online support group, which is a really nice opportunity to speak with other activists from all over the country and even the world about what's going on within your community, or even strategize ways to come up with new signage for protests, or different strategies for activism in general. So we do support and also strategize solutions.
I bet that really helps to kind of normalize a lot of the feelings and compassion fatigue symptoms that go along with this line of work.
Oh, definitely. It's helpful to speak with each other as ways to realize, I'm not alone. Other people are struggling with a similar thing, and we also might be able to help one another. Oftentimes in the support groups, one person will have great solution for another person who's gone through something similar. So I find it to be a wealth of information. And we also have another service, a regular service that we provide, which is their sustainable activism webinars. And they are offered also once a month. And this one is the first Thursday of every month, where we bring in different experts in the field of activism and self-care to look at what are some ways to support the activists in their work to help animals. So we've had different people in the fields of psychology, or it could be an animal behaviorist who's talking about their work with animals, but all of it is to support activists. In fact, we've been fortunate enough to have feature your work, Jennifer, on our webinar with your book, and we're just so grateful to you and all the work that you do.
Oh, it was definitely my pleasure. So Lisa and I go way back. We met online. Gosh, it has to have been about a year ago, at least, would you say?
Yes, I think so.
So, speaking of events, I know that you will periodically offer different type of events. You even have a retreat. Can you tell us more about some of the things that you put on? And do you have anything that's coming up relatively soon here?
Sure. Yes, I can share a couple of things actually. So the one that's happening right away is we're starting a specific support group called the Animal Activist Support Circle. And this one is a condensed, a 4-week program, which each week is a support group with people who've committed to be there for 4 weeks, and it will be led and facilitated by a psychotherapist named April Lang, who recently wrote a book also on how to support oneself as an animal activist. And so she's going to be there to hold the space for an activist discussion where we get to know each other a little bit more deeply than we're able to on our monthly meetings. So this is a special feature that we're offering for a few activists to get together and really delve a little deeper into personal issues that might and communication issues and relationship issues that we can help to resolve and provide support for in that 4-week program. So that's something we're very excited about.
And is that also a free resource?
Yes, that's a free resource, and folks can register for that or express an interest in that by sending an email to sustainable activism at idausa.org. And that email will come to me, and then I'll be able to provide more information for this. It's a private meeting, actually. So that's a new thing that we're offering. And we also have retreats that we put together. So we do activist healing retreats that provide communication tools and rituals to build community. And those are really great events that we produce every so often in a specific community. And then we put together vegan spirituality retreats. And these are an opportunity for vegans to get together and to explore what does being vegan mean as a spiritual practice. And so we provide a yoga meditation. We bring in a speaker who can share more about spirituality and veganism. And we usually have an experience in nature and an animal blessing that we put together that's a kind of unique ceremony for vegans to honor their relationships to other animals and to the animals who are suffering around the world. So it's a wonderful event to connect with other like-minded souls and to celebrate what it means to be vegan. And we do those at least once a year, if not more, and in various locations around the country.
That is so incredibly up my alley, and I can't wait until you come to Michigan. Hint, hint. I might be there.
Oh,
So, since the remind me again of when. I know that In Defense of Animals has been around for a few decades now. Remind me when the Sustainable Activism campaign took off.
sure. The Sustainable Activism campaign started in 2014, and it's kind of still a new type of campaign in the animal rights movement because I think many activists don't acknowledge, oh, I need help, or that they want to spend time on themselves versus all the time helping the animals. So there's a learning curve here in trying to share with folks that this is important, that we take care of ourselves so that we can continue to take care of the animals. And we started this campaign in 2014, letting people know about it and also trying to show the activist world that we matter, that who we are also matters. We need to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, there's a lot of guilt, I think, that goes into this whole idea of self-care, right? And, it's something that I definitely struggled with and still do from time to time. But have you noticed, at least since the inception of the campaign, have you noticed a difference in how activists are managing compassion fatigue? I know that's not, really a measurable thing, but have you noticed any type of improvement?
Well, what I have noticed is that people are reaching out to us, letting us know their story and telling us about what happened to them and how grateful they are that we have these resources and that we've acknowledged this as a need publicly in our community, that it's a validating experience for them. So we have received a lot of correspondences and communications in that way. And so I think that's making a difference, of validating that this experience is real. And I can also say that because compassion fatigue in general and is being spoken about more frequently just with healthcare providers, I think it's also coming into the forefront of the animal rights movement as well. Something very exciting that's happened is we have had some animal rights organizations reach out to us as they begin to kind of craft their own way of working with their staff around compassion fatigue. And so that's exciting, that even in the field of animal rights in the workplace, there are efforts being made to assist activists.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I frequently will do local workshops and consulting with animal welfare related organizations. And I'm finding more and more people are really starting to become aware of the impact that compassion fatigue can have on the whole organization. And so I'm finding that people are a lot more open to it. And I think we are starting to see a trend kind of nationwide, perhaps worldwide. At least we're talking about it.
Yes, exactly. And some of the markers to indicate that this compassion fatigue is a real issue is that these organizations, they have quite a high turnover. People get burnt out and they're losing some people after they've trained them. And I think the organization themselves were saying this, noticing that trend and saying, we want to change this so we don't lose people who are valuable folks that we've trained and who love animals, and then, continue to keep restarting that process. So
yeah, because what organizations are doing is they are losing the people that care the most. They're losing their most effective staff.
exactly. And then putting into place some of these preventative measures really help, and that can help people to feel sustained and feel very to kind of have the joy that they've got this wonderful dream job, but that it's not so overwhelming and such a burden and such an emotional drain that they to kind of keep it in a positive place for them. And I have spoken to a couple of activists, and one of them in particular said, if I knew this before I started my volunteer position with this organization, I would still be working with the animals today. I would still be doing this. But she said that it got so bad to a point where she can't function well enough to volunteer anymore. So that's a concern. We really want people who care about animals to be able to do that, because each one of us is priceless. I mean, it's so key to have people who have the open heart to care about the animals, but we also have to protect our hearts as well.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And so Lisa, have you ever, we talk about validating people and helping to reduce the stigma of compassion fatigue and burnout. And I think what's really helpful is when I have guests on the show, I like to ask, have you ever personally struggled with compassion fatigue or burnout? And if so, how do you personally manage that yourself these days?
That is a great question. So in hindsight, I think I did experience some compassion fatigue and burnout. However, in the moment, I did not realize it. So there was a time that I was working a job and then doing a lot of animal activism on the side. I ran 2 different nonprofit animal rights groups that I loved, and I was very engaged in everything that I did. So I actually didn't notice that my self-care wasn't being kept up to par. So I got very used to sleeping maybe 3, possibly 4 hours a night, and doing a lot of, work late in the evening, and taking care of all the animals. I had probably 10 or 15 rescued animals at the time as well, and was out doing a lot of activism. So trying to balance all of this I was aware that I was trying to balance it, but what I wasn't aware of was that it was depleting me. And I had a kind of a life change where I moved to another location. And when I did that, I had things shifted, because the same volunteer opportunities that I was working on were suddenly ended. And I had this block of time where I was pretty free and open. And at that moment, I realized, wow, I was exhausted. I just didn't know it at the time. And then because I realized it, I was able to build things as I started adding new things to do in my new location and my new life, so to say, so to speak, then I could do that consciously and include in some self-care as I went. So as I added in a new volunteer project, I also added in, okay, I'm going to do yoga, a yoga practice in the morning, or I'm going to do a meditation practice at this time. So I could build them in together so they were integrated and a little bit more balanced. Like I was able to take time for myself to do things that were in nature, which always helps to support. I love being in nature as a way to support my activism because it helps me stay connected to what I care about so much, the animals and the environment. And so integrating that into the new projects that I was bringing in really helped me to keep a balance from the get-go.
It really is all about balance, and it's so important because sometimes this work can feel really like an uphill battle, right? Like this never-ending uphill battle. And politically speaking, the next 4 years are not likely to be very animal or environmentally friendly, right? How does that impact the work that you guys do, and what can people do to kind of face the next 4 years here, knowing that it's going to be maybe even more of a battle than previously?
Yes, that is a hot topic in the animal rights community these days. And actually, what we did right away, it was just about at the inauguration time, we hosted our animal activist support group, the one that we run every month. The topic was about the current administration, how people felt, what they foresaw coming in the future, and really helping people with that initial disappointment and depression that came about with this news. So I think providing these sorts of resources for people where they can talk about it freely with other people who understand where they're coming from is very helpful. And then during our call, each one of us kind of made a commitment to get more active politically. And I think that was a different thing for the activists that we were speaking with, who often focus more on the animals and weren't as involved in local politics. But here, taking a moment to say, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to get active in a political issue locally as a way to kind of beat some of that depression that came up, that helplessness, by taking a step forward towards getting active in that way, which might be new for people who were focused on animal rescue or focused on different sorts of protests. So that's one way. And another big way that we tried to reach out to the activist community was we hosted our first annual Hope for Animals Summit. And this was done in February, which is what we call at IDA Activist Appreciation Month. So we hosted this online summit, and the purpose of it was to gather experts in the fields of animal rights and also self-care to talk about what can we do in this time of political unrest? Is there any hope for animals? So we actually have a whole bunch of resources that we put together, including advocacy kits for activists who wanted to get involved. And all of those resources are still on our website, and that is under idausa.org/hope Summit. And there you can actually go back and listen to all of the interviews with folks like Mark Beckoff, who's an animal behaviorist, and Jonathan Balcombe, another one, and even various folks who are in the environmental movement were part of this project too. So we encourage people to use those resources. They're free, and it's one way to really talk about specifically what to do with the politics that are happening today.
That's amazing. I think in addition to self-care, I think one of the other, what we know, self-care and support are really the two components when it comes to kind of fighting compassion fatigue, but empowerment. I think also giving people, helping them to feel more empowered. So whether that's like writing to your representative or joining one of these marches that we're seeing pop up like never before, right? So I think helping people to empower themselves is also extremely helpful. So, Lisa, is there anything else you'd like our listeners to know?
I would love to let our listeners know that we are here for you, that in Defense of Animals, we put together this campaign for activists, for people who care about animals. And we hope that people will avail themselves of these services. They're free, and to spread the word, to tell people about them. If this is the first time you've ever heard about our support line, try giving us a call. The number is 800-705-0425.
Awesome. And for those of you who are out and about and not by your phone or your computer right now, I'm going to have all of those links in the show notes page at the CompassionFatiguePodcast.com, so you can go back at a later time and have access to all of those. So Lisa, one more time, how can people learn more about In Defense of Animals or the Sustainable Activism Campaign?
Well, the best way to do that is to visit our website, which is idausa.org. And if you'd like to go straight to our Sustainable Activism Campaign page, you would do /Sustainable Activism after that website domain. And there you'll find the vision of what we hope to provide for all of the activists and the types of collaborations that we're hoping to evolve. And you'll also be able to access the support line information, and all of our webinar replays are there. We've been doing these for a couple of years, so there's quite a few wonderful resources that are there if you ever want to just listen to a webinar, or watch, I should say, on despair repair, or on managing our anger as activists. We have many different tools that are available from the website. Also, from the events page, you'll be able to find out when our next retreat is, and there may be one in your area.
And if it's in Michigan, you may just see your host there.
I hope so.
No pressure. Oh, Lisa, thank you so much. Again, I'm going to put all those links up on the show notes page at the CompassionFatiguePodcast.com. And please do take advantage of all these resources. Lisa, I really appreciate everything that you and IDA do for our community. Thanks so much for your time.
And thank you. I am delighted to be here and to share the resources that we put together, but I'm also just so proud of what you're doing, and excited to share those resources with our activists as well. We also have a Facebook group for animal activists to provide support, and that is called the Animal Activists Online Support Group. And we do like to share when you're having podcasts coming up on that page, just to let everyone know so people can avail themselves of these great resources.
Well, I appreciate that. You're too kind. Lisa, you have a great weekend. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to the Compassion Fatigue podcast today. Please remember to head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show so you never miss a single episode. Please don't forget to check out the CompassionFatiguePodcast.com for additional resources. And please do be sure to share the show with those friends and colleagues who are involved in animal welfare and who you think would also benefit from this information. Please note that this podcast is not meant to provide medical advice or substitute for psychological care. Please consult with a mental health professional if you need additional support, and if you are feeling suicidal, please go to your nearest emergency room or call 911.